Hi, it's Becky and welcome to my channel. This is a behind-the-scenes look at my project for Roxy's Journal of Stitchery Volume 4 Treasure Hunt. I created this as a tribute to my mom and grandma. And these are some great old photos of my mom and grandma. The first one is them together back in Galveston, I think, probably around 1946. They look like they were having a great time. The second one is my sweet grandma from her days as a cafeteria manager at an elementary school. Sadly, she passed in the year 2000. We miss her every day. And then next is an older picture, of course, of my beautiful mom, who is now 85. And she is my roommate and best friend. I just love these old photos. Grandma sewed Mom a new dress every week during her junior and senior years of high school. I wore that amazing red lace dress for Halloween one year, dragging it around in the mud. I can't believe Mom let me wear it. My grandma also made most of my school clothes throughout my school years, up until later in high school when I started buying my own things. But that annual trip to the fabric store to pick out the fabric and the notions and the patterns, gosh, those are some of my best memories still to this day. My mom sewed as well, and she actually made my senior prom dress, this peach Kiana number. I absolutely loved that dress. I remember she and my aunt were actually still stitching on that floral trim on the Empire waist when my date arrived. They were just like Cinderella's mice. So when I saw that the Roxy's Journal of Stitchery Volume 4 project was going to be a treasure hunt, a slow-stitched sampler piece, I knew I wanted it to include some sewing treasures from my grandma and for it to also be an overall homage to the sewing women in my life. So I gathered coordinating trims, ribbons, vintage fabrics, and a few treasured embroidery pieces. Then I pulled together some yummy vintage laces and crocheted pieces. And I was able to include a few of my grandma's buttons from her sewing cabinet too. Then I laid all the gathered pieces out to start planning the composition. And I found this funky old applique linen tea towel to use for the base. I embroidered the S monogram on a vintage linen hanky that I had just purchased at a flea market. The finely crocheted red, peachy pink, and clover green trim on the hanky became the color story for the whole piece. Fabric placement and pinning were next. Lots and lots of pinning. Then there was lots and lots of stitching. Next, I started layering the embellishments. I combined buttons and some vintage crochet, lots of old and new ribbon, plus I added a few touches of embroidery here and there. I really love all the textures. I used this little embroidered linen piece in various spots throughout the sampler. It's one that wasn't a real favorite of mine, but the colors were perfect. I love roses, so it worked out. I featured Grandma's buttons wherever I could in the composition. She had so many that were the perfect color, so it was great to use them. This verse became the theme of the whole treasure hunt project for me. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Matthew 6:19. I embroidered the scripture verse onto various pieces of muslin and then stitched them on, adding embellishments of lace, more buttons, and even some tiny beads. I really kept up the rose theme all the way through the piece. I must have sewed at least a dozen roses into the collage, probably a few more. Everything from some crocheted roses that were harvested from old doilies. There were a few embroidered roses from vintage linens. I had fabric that had roses on it, and I stitched on top of those. I even had a little rose pin that was made out of metal that I stitched down with a couching stitch. I loved how all the roses worked into the design. Even a few odd pieces of junk jewelry found their way onto the piece. Oh, and quite a few vintage yo-yos too. I can't seem to stitch anything without using yo-yos. This vintage sewing pattern girl had the 50s vibe that reminded me of my mom. I scanned and then printed and fussy cut her image and glued it onto a piece of fun foam. Then I just stitched the fun foam onto the bottom of the collage to finish it out. I love how it turned out. I love the touch that she added to the piece. I'm so grateful to my grandma and to my mom for helping shape my love for fabric and patterns and trims and buttons. And I wanted to thank all the creative folks who put their heart and soul into making so many of these vintage needlework treasures that I'm endeavoring to honor. I hope this piece honors all of them. And I wanted to give an extra thank you to Sarah and Rachel for all the instructions, the inspiration, and all the encouragement along the way during these challenges. They're so fun to do, and I'm so happy to be a part of this one. Thank you so much for stopping by. I invite you to like and subscribe. I appreciate you. Thanks so much. See you next time.